Alrighty, folks, welcome to Eagles Power Hour, your official, unofficial Eastern Washington affiliate on the Big Sky Podcast Network, as well as a member of the FCS Fans Nation Network and Fans Nation Network YouTube channel. I'm your host, Patrick Frakes, and today we got a short little update. We got some news. Eastern Washington has officially named their new defensive coordinator. And it is a little bit unexpected, not exactly who we expected, but Eastern elevated the last year's linebackers coach and defensive run game coordinator Eric Sanders to be the new defensive coordinator. This was definitely not a hire I expected. Um, I got word that this was going to be an in-house hire around a week and a half ago, and looking at the four defensive coaches, Eric Sanders was probably number 4 on the list of what I would have expected. There's on that list, there's 2 guys with former, Division II or NAIA defensive coordinator experience, as well as a former Eastern alumni in Zach Bruce, and a guy that, has been at Eastern for years now. So I kind of assume one of him, Wes Nurse, or Matt Ulrich would have gotten the job, guys with previous DC experience in Wes Nurse and Matt Ulrich, as well as the Eastern alumni. And I ended up going to defensive run coordinator and linebackers coach Eric Sanders here. And I know a lot. I've already seen comments that are like, "Why would Eastern hire their run game coordinator and linebackers coach when that was probably the weakest in terms of performance position group in 2023?" That was also one of the weakest and worst units in the country in that Eastern run D. And I kind of had the same question. It definitely seems interesting to hire the run game coordinator, but the more I look into Eric Sanders' resume, the more I watch of him talking about ball, the more I am optimistic and excited to see what he does. Just looking into his resume here, he started his career on defense. He spent a few years being kind of an offensive quality control guy around, but he started his career grad assisting at Utah State, and then eventually got the linebackers coach at UC Davis job. He was there for about 2 seasons. Then he ended up going to the Oakland Raiders, and he has a number of years of NFL experience. Most of it with kind of bad teams, but it's still NFL experience. That's a different schedule, different experience. You kind of learn. You really have to learn to be a leader in the NFL. That is a lot different than college football. He has some experience with defensive linemen. He did some linebackers work, also did some tight end work. Then he went up to defense to be a defensive assistant at Stanford for a year, primarily with defensive linemen, and coached some absolute studs here: Harrison Phillips and Solomon Thomas, as well as Brennan Scarlett. Really good players there that have had good NFL careers. Then he moved on to work in quality control on defense for the Cleveland Browns. Again, not a good team here. 2017 was the 0-16 Cleveland Browns year. Not the greatest, but he coached the linebackers and nickelbacks in Cleveland there that year, those couple years. And then he got a job with the Jets. Was a defensive assistant for the Jets for a year. And then he went up to Stanford in 2020 and worked on the previous Stanford staff as the inside linebackers coach. Had some success. Those Stanford defenses weren't great, but he had a few linebackers that ended up going on and spending time in the NFL. I'm not even going to try to pronounce this guy's name, Levani Dom something, but he was a stud, and I've heard of him. He has a wide array of experience, some Power 5 experience, some NFL experience. So, and some Big Sky experience back in 2008. Well, I don't know. I'm not even sure if Davis was in the Big Sky back then, but he is a UC Davis grad, so that is something to note as well. Definitely it's an impressive resume, but it definitely wasn't what I would have expected. in terms of the resume I would have picked up the four guys for the defensive coordinator spot. But then again, this job's more than a resume thing. Um, from what I've heard from, just doing some baseline research and looking at what, former colleagues of his have said, Eric is a very, very detail oriented guy, and he's a guy that brings a lot of passion and a lot of energy to his job. He's a guy that likes to optimize everything in his life, and he's going to do everything for a reason. He's not going to do things that don't have a reason in his life. And I think that's important because I think that is kind of what the weakness of the defense was in 2023. It was a lot of missing little simple things, that little attention to detail things that need to be addressed. Little things like having your cutback responsibility player in your run fit. Little things like having disciplined eyes. Little things like you know I guess just things like that. Small little attention to detail things where Eastern felt like a lot of the year on defense, it felt like they were just two steps behind. And those little attentions to detail will put them right where they need to be. Um, that is something that I think Eric Sanders will be able to excel in, and I'm excited to see where he goes with that type of thing. Um, I've definitely heard that he's a very intense, exciting, like energy enthused guy, and that's a great thing to see. You know, uh, I definitely think this defense was missing a little bit of juice last year. Typically Eastern defenses thrive a lot on momentum and forcing turnovers, and it felt a little bit like it wasn't there last year. Like the good defenses in the 2010s were never dominating brick wall defenses. They're very opportunistic. That word is difficult. Opportunistic defenses that would get a stop when they need to, force a turnover when they need to. They can bow up, bend but not break. And I'm opportunist. Excuse me. I'm optimistic that Coach Sanders will be able to bring, that quality back to Eastern Washington's defense. It's a hire a little bit where it's like I don't totally know what to expect, but I'm optimistic. He's a guy, just talking a little bit schematically throughout his whole career. It looks like he's been working in 4-3/4-2-5 defenses, um, all the way up from. I looked at film from 2008 all the way up to the 2019 Jets and the 2020 Stanford Cardinal. They all ran pretty much. Most of them were a base 4-3 or a 4-2-5 with like a hybrid nickel, similar to what Eastern has always ran on defense. And I know some people are like, well, that scheme clearly hasn't worked in the run defense. Well, look at a team like Idaho. Look at a team like Montana State. Solid run defense. They all run the 4-2-5. Hell, South Dakota State and North Dakota State both run 4-2-5s, and they're great run defenses usually, typically. I don't think the scheme is necessarily what has hurt Eastern Washington. I think it has been a lot of little disciplined things that the run fit, not everyone's on the same page. The run fit is slightly off, allows a big cutback, and then all of a sudden a 2-yard gain turns into a 15-yard gain. One missed tackle turns a 5-yard gain into a touchdown. Little things like that don't happen at those schools that are very, very well coached, that, I felt like we weren't coached as well in 22-23. And that's kind of where those things happened. I watched a podcast / live stream thing where he did a presentation on quarters coverage, and it really sounds like Coach Sanders is a quarters coverage type guy. So kind of assuming that this defense's base will be some sort of a 4-2-5, 4-3 base with a base quarters coverage, split field coverage where you have your numbering off your receivers and matching up. It's kind of between a man and a zone base. Depending on the scheme, you can run it more like a zone coverage or more like a man coverage. But basically, to put it simply, each defensive player that's covering a receiver has a specific kind of set of rules that decide who they're going to cover. and it's based on where the route breaks. Say this outside receiver, the number one receiver on one side breaks in, then that guy becomes the responsibility of a linebacker rather than the corner who will deepen up into a zone, get depth, and whatever. It's this little, there's a system of rules that decides who's going to cover who. That's kind of the quarters defense as a whole. It's probably the most common defense in the NFL right now. Um, and Sanders talked about on that podcast that I'm talking about. I'm actually probably going to try to link that below because it's some good stuff, and it gets you to introduce to him a little bit. This is from that podcast is from 2020 when he was working for Stanford, but it's interesting because the quarters coverage is something that can be kind of complex at times, but a lot of teams run it in the Big Sky, and um, I definitely like. I know we ran a decent amount of of quarters coverage last season and the last 2 years, and it seemed to work fine. The passing defense wasn't horrible in the last couple of years. It actually seemed like more of a strength of the team. So, I'm excited to see what he brings there. But Eric Sanders is also a guy that has experience, in the box, being a run game coordinator. He's been a linebackers coach most of his career. Excuse me. So I like that he has that diverse background. He's worked with defensive linemen all the way back up to the secondary, so he's not going to be a DC that puts a lot of effort and work into one part of the game and then doesn't put the same in the other. I know I've seen that happen sometimes where someone hires a DB coach and then all of a sudden their run defense is horrible because their defensive scheme just doesn't care about the defensive linemen and little things like that. I'm not afraid of that with Eric Sanders. And I can't remember if I mentioned this already, but he's a very detail oriented guy. You definitely get the sense of that from that podcast from 2020 or that show where he is paying very close attention to what everyone is doing in the scheme. Like he wants everyone to have a purpose on the scheme. He doesn't want to have a backer covering the shallow hole for no reason. He wants there always to be a reason. He wants to be able to do different things with his defense for different reasons to create pressure. He's gonna do everything with a purpose. And this sounds bad, but like that, it didn't feel like that last year with the defensive coordinator that we had. Did not feel like that. It felt like there was guys in places that were just there because they're there. There wasn't a specific purpose for it. And I know that's probably not true, but it almost felt like that, I'm excited to have a new level of energy, bringing that energy back to this Eastern defense, something that definitely has felt like it's missed. I'm hoping that, brings a little bit of juice, brings a little bit more energy back to the crowd. I don't know. It's a hire that I didn't expect, so it caught me a little bit by surprise. That's for sure. At first, I definitely expected it to be an out-of-house hire. Turns out it's in-house, and I was like, okay, well, probably Coach Ulrich or Coach Nurse, who has that DC experience, or Coach Bruce, who's an alumni. Nope, it was Eric Sanders, and that's fine. But looking more into it, like I've already said, and I'm kind of repeating myself here, but I'm excited. I'm optimistic, honestly, with all the diversity in his background. And I'm excited for him to be more of an aggressive coach. That's definitely something that he mentioned. I saw the Spokesman Reviews article on this already today. This announcement came out when I was at class, and so I didn't have time to make an instant podcast. But, I like that he's probably going to bring more aggression, something that we've lacked the last couple of years. Um, Probably more blitzing, more man coverage, which is great. I definitely feel like Eastern has had the talent to run more man coverage than we have the last couple of years. We've ran a lot of soft zone, a lot of deep quarters, deep cover four, like kind of giving up those underneath routes to teams, and I kind of like that he's probably going to try to put a stop to that. In that podcast that I keep referencing again, I know, but it's nice to have. It's the one source I have of actually listening to him talk. And when you listen to him talk, you can just tell he knows his shit. And excuse my French there, but like he knows his shit. and he always has a purpose for what he's doing. Um, he said if he could, he would always run cover one. And he said his purpose for that was you have a man on a man throughout your entire defense. You have a guy up top to cover your deep zone in case anyone in man on man screws up really bad. You always have enough people in the box to fit the run well. And he just seems like a very well-rounded coach that he's going to put his emphasis on the run defense, which is definitely what we need. But he knows his shit in the secondary. He knows simple things like how to address like a jet motion in the quarters defense, how the different ways you can address a jet motion, and all these different nuances to the game that it gets me excited. It gets me excited because he knows what he's talking about, and I'm like I said, I'm just optimistic. I think bringing that juice, bringing that consistency, bringing that aggression is what this Eastern defense needs, and hopefully, we're gonna try to get Coach Eric Sanders on the show to kind of introduce him to you guys more personally because defense is a very hot topic in Cheney, that's for sure. And I know some people aren't exactly super happy with this hire. I think he's a guy that you guys just need to listen to talk, and you will definitely feel better about this hire. Because that's how I was. I definitely was a little bit. I was a little bit like run game coordinator. Listen to the guy talk a little bit in these videos, and you're like, okay, he knows what he's doing. Very detail oriented, and I'm optimistic and excited to see where that detail orientedness takes this Eagle defense. And I feel like little things like that is what would have made the difference for Eastern's season last year. Here, I'm pulling up this the season from last year. If you see this is something I hit on in the season recap, but 1, 2, 3. Well, I'm counting this as 3, 4, 5, 6 one possession games, correct? And we lost 1, 2, 3, 4 of those one possession games. We finished the season at 4-7. If we can snag 3 of those 4 losses back of the one possession games, we make the playoffs at 7-5 in the Big Sky. You make the playoffs, most likely. Sometimes it doesn't happen, but most likely, especially with a win over Davis. And we would also, at that point, we'd have a win over Idaho, possibly. We wouldn't have a loss to Idaho State. We'd have a win over Weber. This Portland State game, really, you don't give up. You give up 30 points in this game, you win. You give up anything less than 42 points, you win this game against Idaho State. Like, this team was so close. It felt like a team that rolled up the hill, and right at the top here, there was just a little setback. Just quite wasn't there defensively. And if we can get this defense even somewhat competent in 24, I think Eastern is a playoff team. Just looking forward to the 2024 schedule, there's winnable games all over this place. And there's a really tough stretch in the middle, but like Monmouth, they're an okay CAA team, but this is a team that Eastern should beat handily. This is a team that they have a really good really good offense typically. So it'll be a test for this Eagle defense. I'm going to try to get to this game for sure. But this is a winnable game. Winnable out of conference game. It's an FCS win. Cool. 1-0. Drake, we should blow them out. Let's be real. 2-0. At Sela, this is the game that we should blow them out probably. But, we never know. Playing down the heat in September is sometimes tough. Should win this game, though. 3-0. Now, Nevada through Montana State is this really tough stretch where, it's going to test this team a lot. We play probably the 5 best defenses in the league right here, all back to back to back to back to back. And it'll be a test. But again, I think if we have a competent defense, we can snag probably 2 of these games. You snag 2 or 3 of these games, you're in the playoffs almost for sure, as long as you take care of business. Northern Colorado, Idaho State, Northern Arizona, these are teams that haven't looked good. Idaho State's been a little frisky, but they haven't looked that good. Northern Arizona, again, a little frisky. They beat us last year, But like these are teams. Northern Arizona fired their coach last year. They're not that good. Like Northern Colorado was a dumpster fire last year, and that sounds bad, but like these are teams we should beat. These top four are teams that we probably should beat. Nevada's a winnable FBS game. If you're 7-5 with an FBS win, you're in the playoffs in the Big Sky. Like more likely than not. I'm very optimistic and I'm very excited to see where this team goes because I feel like they're so close in 23 to being on that borderline playoff team. Ended up just falling short, losing a couple of those close games that you just can't lose. And as a guy like Koa matures, they're there. They're there. I think 2024 will be a very fun, bright season. A lot of that youth is getting a little older. That young defense is getting more experienced. Um, you know, it. I'm optimistic. I've said this so many times, but I'm legit optimistic. And I know the last 2 years have been kind of down, drowsy years for Eagle fans, but like the future's bright. I'm excited. I'm really hoping that Coach Eric Sanders can get this defense figured out and get her done, man. But yeah, super excited about this upcoming in the future. I feel like it's a really important year in 2024 to get Eastern, get the ball rolling again. It feels like we've hit a couple of bumps in the road here, and just really hoping that we can get the ball rolling again. These recruiting classes are great. There's a lot of youth on the team that's done well, that's maturing, that made some dumb mistakes in 23. And I think some of those mistakes will go away in 24 with some good coaching. So, again, excited. Get to freaking Roos this year, guys. I'm just highlighting the schedule here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 home games, guys. And guess what? 3 of those are the top teams in the Big Sky. Montana, Davis, and Montana State are 3 of the best teams in the Big Sky. Idaho State's a frisky team. You want to watch these come beat down on the Bengals. So, send them back to Pokey crying. Monmouth should be a fun game as well. They're a really good offensive team. Drake, we should blow them out. But 6 home games, guys. Get to Roos. It'll be so much fun. Even I'm considering buying season tickets this year, even though I'm a student at another university. It almost works out perfectly for me. So, get out to Roos, guys. Super excited for this upcoming season. I'm optimistic about the new defensive coordinator, and I hope to talk to him more about some football, about some scheme here in the future. But anyways, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed. Leave a comment if you have any suggestions for off-season guest episodes. We've just been trying to get ideas for the off-season episodes as much as we can. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's about all we got for today's episode of Eagles Power Hour. Coming up next week, we're going to break down these basketball games from this upcoming weekend against Northern Colorado and Northern Arizona. Yeah, I think that's about all I got for today. Thank you guys for listening, and go Eags.